Hello and welcome to another update on the Aries North Node energy. I am recording this on July 28th, 2023, and what I have to say is I cannot freaking believe that it has not even been 2 weeks of this energy. It feels like a lifetime already. It's like 10 days. So that's how long we've been actually living. If you're like watching these in real time, don't worry, it's a timeless reading. The whole rest of it, basically, as long as we're talking about Aries North Node energy, it basically always applies. Or developing your Aries energy in general, right? Like we all are all 12 of the zodiac archetypes. So at any given time, we're all somewhat of a mix of healing our Libra shadows and developing our Aries energy. So literally, whenever you're watching this video, I trust that there's a lot in here that, like, triggering isn't the right word because I don't think it's upsetting. I hope it's not. Transmuting, alchemizing, catalyzing, like this is designed to move energy. And the reason I'm giving you these things is because they moved me so powerfully, and they're tying into these themes that we've been talking about through these updates. And so there's a lot of things that I want to recommend, and I have no doubt whenever you're watching this, these little seeds are getting planted like right on time. And the very first one that's at the top of my mind is something that I watched on Hulu yesterday, and the show itself is called Mother Undercover. And I think so far there's 4 episodes, and I don't know enough to say if they're going to make more, but like I watched the first 2 of them, and these are stories of women, one woman in each episode, who essentially took justice into her own hands. And the first one solved the homicide of her son, and the second one retrieved her kidnapped child from Korea. So, like, you did what? Like, the lengths that these women were willing to go to, the risks that they were willing to take, the courage that was required of them, the oppositional force that they had to face in order to achieve these things. Like, I was sitting here having a completely spiritual experience listening to their stories, where I felt like you can see clear as day what the Aries North Node is asking for from every single one of us. It's like, yeah, like what lights your fire to where you cannot be stopped? And sometimes, I would argue basically all the time, it's a large dose of pain that induces us into something that is a life or death fight for us. And there's a lot I could say. I mean, I feel like I could make like a whole reaction video to Mother Undercover. I cannot recommend it enough. I cried a lot. It's very heavy as far as like hearing what these women went through, the agony and the setbacks, and the people who didn't believe them, and people who thought they were crazy, and people who thought they were stupid for what they were like. I mean, it's just insane how many people tried to talk them out of what they were doing, and they would not be stopped because I need this. And so, you know what? Because I need it, I better just get up here and do it myself. And that's what they did. And I was like, and just water out the face, lots. And huge emotional release. And like I said, it was a spiritual experience, because I was not only having this like upwelling of love for them and admiration for, like, just flat out respect for what these women were doing or had done and were continuing to do in some of the cases. Like the first woman, for example, she got into, like, she became an investigator, basically. Like, she solved what happened, like, to her son. And then once they knew who it was, like, where's justice? Like, come on. And so she got into protests and, like, talking to news outlets and like really doing whatever was within her power, threats or no threats. Like, she was not going to be stopped. Like, she did whatever was in her power to get justice for her son. And that's exactly what she got. And after the trial and the conviction and the sentence, and like, okay, so that's like done now, there was like, okay, now we can grieve. But also, she had met so many people, she had made such a network, she had gotten into this place where, like, I can use my voice to stand up and speak up about other unsolved crimes, like other mothers who have lost their sons and still don't know what happened to them. You know, like, it lit this fire inside of her. And so she still is organizing protests. She's still activating other people to, like, advocate for as much justice as we can possibly do. And she did it in a very beautiful way, I think, in which, like, she came from a neighborhood where there was no cooperation with local law enforcement. That's part of the problem. They handled their things through just like street level violence, and that was actually how her son died. And she was very clear that, like, I don't want retaliation. I want him in handcuffs. I want to face him in a courtroom. I want him to go behind bars and have to sit there knowing that it was because, like, you messed with the wrong woman. You messed with the wrong woman's son, you know? And the realization that, like, we are all capable of that is something that just, like, thank you. Like, thank you for demonstrating, like, exactly what every single one of us is capable of. And so, as I am just, like, witnessing, it goes even so much deeper than that, but, like, as I'm witnessing this, I had this, like, basically divine download, something along those lines, where I heard from, like, my guides or my spiritual support, my higher self, however you want to say it, this is not just watching TV. That was the words. That was, like, what was said. This is not just watching TV. I cannot communicate to you the split-secondness, the instantaneousness of this is not just watching TV and break down crying. Like, it just was an instant impact onto me, and an instant, like, thunderclap of all of these different images. It was like a whole, like, collage wall of images of, like getting told I was lazy when I was little, that I watched too much TV. That was, like, one of my favorite things to do. Kind of still is. It's a deep experience when I watch media, when I watch stories, when I enter into that space, like, something alchemical happens. And there was that understanding when it landed, like, this is not just watching TV. I also saw one of the other images was my own natal chart, where I have the ruler of my chart, the ruler of my Taurus rising, Venus in Gemini in the second house, exactly conjunct by 1 degree, the ruler of my south node, Mercury. So I have Mercury and Venus in the second house in Gemini, very close together. And that being shown to me kind of, like, at the same time of, like, and the crying, I realized was, like, this deep relief that then translated to this release that I had to, like, erupt emotionally and cry on out. That, like, that was part of the programming that I had gotten when I was little, was to be ashamed of my laziness and my my sedentary lifestyle. And I just kind of like got into this place where like, you know, I'm not super vocal about like my TV hobby. I don't really talk about it with anybody. I just watch what I watch and I experience what I experience. And I almost always funnel most of those realizations somehow into the conversations that I do have with people. I just don't tell them like, yeah, I got this off Dexter or whatever. But I glean so much from these places, and that's because it's not just watching TV. And those tears were like, no, the way you are is beautiful. And that feels very, very much in line with this Aries North Node, where we are meant to understand our identity in a more productive way. We are meant to understand the power of what we are personally capable of when we accept what it is that we want and go after it with single-minded determination. Of like, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what the law is. I don't care if they're gonna gun me down in the street. Like, I don't care. I'm gonna do this. And so to have that level of determination, like, dude, like, you can move mountains. You can literally have whatever you want. Another piece that I want to tell you about is the book, What You Think of Me Is None of My Business. And this was written by Cole-Whittaker. As soon as I saw the title of it, and especially once I got into it, I was like, oh my God, this should be the official guidebook of how to Aries North Node. Like, listen to this book and you basically get the gist of it. What you think of me is none of my business because you are not my source. That's the key, is like, other people outside of you are not your source. You are your source. Inside of you, your higher self, your connection with the divine, your feeling of your life in your own hands and you getting to choose whatever you want. You have the power to have whatever you want. Like in that book, and I think it's in the first chapter, it's something like, you already have the power. And it is a rather spiritual book, but in that she refers to it as like, you know, source, universe, God, higher self, whatever, call it whatever you want. For simplicity, I'm calling it God. And so she says that she gives a warning at the beginning of her seminars and any time she's working with people, and she's like, I'm gonna give it to you here right now, and like, don't go forward if you don't want to, like, you know, really move in this way. Is like, you have to know that God's will, like God, the universe, source, your higher self, which is what I believe we're each and every one of us an extension of God. God's will is for you to have whatever you want. There's no right or wrong outside of you. There's no right or wrong up in the sky. There's no right or wrong written down in a book somewhere. There's no source outside of you. And so there is no such thing as universal rightness or universal wrongness. There's only what is right for you and what is wrong for you. And you personally have to be the expert in that. That's your birthright. That's your position inside your vehicle, is to be the expert on what is right for you. And it's, in general, What You Think of Me, None of My Business, like, in general, it's a very helpful book for kind of like untangling the programming that does keep us in this place of factoring in everybody else's opinions, right? It's not that we don't have any clue who we are. Typically, we do know who we are, and we are actively trying to cover it up or hide it or pretend it's not real or change it or cut it off or whatever. Like, typically we do know, and if anything, maybe you're in denial about who you really are, but it's in there somewhere. And it's actually like the easiest thing in the world. Who you are, feeling what's right for you and what's wrong for you, is like the easiest thing in the world. And the only thing that, like Aries being that fire sign, like it's just natural, it just is, it just exists. And that Libra South Node, that air South Node of like the shadow of air energy is that you don't move at all. You just stay inside like an echo chamber, and you can just play out eternity in there, and it's never over. The echo, it's never over. There's always another person to give you more advice, you know? And at the end of the day, like my mama says, like, you are the one that has to live with your choices. And so skip the echo chamber and just feel for yourself what's right for you, what's wrong for you. And if it were that easy, we'd all already be doing it, right? The reasons that we don't, though, I feel like she does a great job in this book talking about how to like kind of see through the misunderstandings that do keep us stuck. And she lays it out like so clearly and easily and simply to understand, like very digestible way. Lots of good examples. And I think I was on like my second listen through when it occurred to me like, ooh, I wonder what her North Node is. And I go look it up. And by golly, she's an Aries South Node. She's like an expert in what you think of me is none of my goddamn business because I am my source. I have to, like, Aries South Node is also what my mom is. Like, I have to live with my choices. I know you're trying to give me advice and that you mean well and that the laws are there to protect the safety of the good of the all, but I need to break that one, you know, like, you know, forgive me, but like, I gotta break this law. I'm sorry, I do. I have to do this. And that is just like freaking fascinating to me because it almost like, well, it goes into true humanity. It transcends civilization. It transcends the limiting, can you hear my disdain? The limiting effects of civilization, where we think we're even civil. You know, there's another recommendation that like only go here if you're drawn here because it's dark, but Yellow Jackets. It'll have you rethink what even is civilization, what even is tribe, what even is survival, what even is the human condition. Like, who are we at our core? And I feel like I personally, like for whatever reason, really had to wrestle with that. And I think the reason is because I'm a Taurus rising, and you better believe the answer I came to is we're hungry. That's all we are, is we're hungry. That's mainly what we need, is we have appetite. There's a consuming, like magnetizing force, bottomless pit inside of each of us that's hungry. Like there's a quote, I think it's at the very end of the second season of Yellow Jackets, and it said, it's not evil, it's just hungry. Appetite. Like when you strip it down to like earth energy, like functionality, like how does it work? It's life force. Appetite. We're hungry. We're hungry for experience. We're hungry for food. We're hungry for love. We're hungry for learning. We're hungry for knowledge. We're hungry for understanding. We're hungry for empathy. We're hungry. We're hungry. And so our needs and our desires are like so interwoven. And this Aries North Node is wanting us to step fully into trusting whatever it is that we desire. Like, trust your appetite. And there's a word where we are taught to not trust our appetite, and this is hedonism, where like basically you can become gluttonous in your appetites, and that's a sin. It's a deadly sin to be gluttonous, to overindulge in your appetite. We've been taught for like thousands of years that like in many ways this leads to bad things. And personally, I think, I'm grateful for my critical thinking in this moment, because I think you can't separate a message like that, like don't overindulge in appetite, which is like kind of baked into the core of our civilization. That's part of the box they want us to get into, is like don't overindulge in your appetite. But like you can't separate a message like that from the source. Who's fucking telling me this? Because I want to know what their motives are. I want to know what's in it for you if I don't overindulge in my appetites. What's in it for you if I starve myself? What do you get out of this? Control, power, manipulation. Controlling appetite is actually part of cult tactics. So the fact that like organized religion has been indoctrinating the world for thousands of years into subduing their appetite. Like we're in a worldwide cult, basically, at this point. And that's another channel that I really want to recommend is CultstoConsciousness. Shalise Ann Sola was a born and raised Mormon, and at 18, 19 years old, she had an experience and she ended up leaving the Mormon church and has since deconstructed. I think she's in her early 30s now, so she's been out like 11, 12 years, and she's still deconstructing, and she hosts episodes where she's basically talking to people from like all different kinds of high control groups. And essentially what I see on her channel is like she's like deconstructing the cult of civilization through like helping us to like get more visibility in the overlap of like all the different cults and the tactics that they use, these high control groups, that they thrive off of you surrendering your personal autonomy and sovereignty. They thrive in followership, surrender and submission. Libra South Node, like I don't want to make waves. I don't want to rock the boat, like I don't want to piss anybody off. Like I want to tell people what they want to hear. That's just another way to say I want to lie. I want to lie to them. You know what? Lying's easier for me, if I'm being honest. So I'm just going to tell them what they want to hear. I'm a people pleaser. Like, people are so free to admit that. And I'm like, I'd work through that a little bit before you go bragging about it, because basically you're admitting that you're a liar. That, like, we can't trust you. We can't trust you to be honest. And we got to really look at like being honest, especially in our civilization. Like it's not rewarded behavior. We have such a thing as public shaming. We drag people out into the literal town square, the metaphorical town square, the online town square, and we publicly shame the fuck out of people. We point our fingers and judge the fuck out of people that we think are the dregs of society. And meanwhile, cult leaders are over here, like world leaders really, like are over here taking full advantage of the fact that you're paying attention to this other person and not yourself, right? Like the medicine, I think, is, Shalise has it nailed on the head, is like on CultstoConsciousness, like the medicine for high control groups, like we can't make them stop doing what they're doing. We can't change anyone. We can only change ourselves. And we can step so fully into our personal sovereignty where like you're telling me to do something, but my first priority is to what inspires me, what feels right to me, what my gut says, what my instincts are saying. And that's the cool thing about, take NXIVM, for example. I've watched The Vow on HBO a trillion times. I don't even know, many, many times. I'm going to talk more about that in the Virgo North Node chapter. But like, for example, they talk about how there were plenty of people who either wouldn't even come to a class because they had so many alarm bells and like wouldn't even go. And they had people who would come to the class and then almost immediately like start asking like so many questions, and basically like the leaders of the session were just like, okay, you need to go, and like they just like put them back outside, and then continued with the ones who were just sitting there taking it all in, you know? So it's not like cults are just like omnipotent and like scary and oh my god, like we're all so susceptible. It's just a matter of understanding like what does self-protection really look like. And honestly, your authenticity is the best self-protection you could ever wish for. Your authenticity will take you away from the people who mean you unnecessary harm. It will, I promise. And it might be a little bit lonely. I mean, there's a lot of people in the world who have ulterior motives and could not care less about what's best for you, right? Like, we are all survivors. Like, going back to Yellow Jackets, like, we're hungry. We're all hungry. We all have needs. We all have things that we would lie for. And so like a people pleaser, for example, it's like I require peace and harmony to the extent that I'm willing to be dishonest in order to continue experiencing peace and harmony, right? Like I need peace more than I need truth. Like no big deal. Like that's just understanding your value system and like what are you making most important in your life and how is that guiding your choices. So like all just good information to have. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're all survivors. We all have an appetite of many, many sorts usually. We all have needs. There's usually reasons for those needs. But we're all doing the best that we can. And projecting the responsibility for our life onto anyone else will always be a dangerous proposition. Dangerous to let someone else be responsible for your well-being. Dangerous. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm telling you, like the bottom line of where I'm at right now with this energy is that this Aries North Node is about reallocating trust from other people, other institutions, laws, structures of civilization, these institutions that we just like without even ever thinking about it, just like gave our power over to like whatever you want from me. Yep, okay, here you go. There's exceptions to people who don't live like that. Scofflaws and whatnot. But again, they get this like shitty reputation from society. But anyways, it's like in this Libra South Node moment, any trust where we are letting some external source, like we're trusting this external source to be our guide, to be our judge and jury, to decide for us what's right? Like anytime we do that, expect for it to not go well. Especially during these 18 months, but really going forward in general, where we have Pluto entering Aquarius, and that is about individuals taking personal responsibility for their individual sovereignty, because each and every single one of us has such a unique gift to give to the world, has such a unique part to play in the grand scheme of the all. And if we're following along on somebody else's recipe, how the fuck are we going to do that? Right? Like it's just, it doesn't work like that. You do need to listen inside of yourself to your own desires, to your own emotions, your own instincts, intuition, inspiration, like what lights your soul on fire to the point where you cannot be stopped. And here's a piece of like, you know, I remember back at a point on my journey where I had just come into contact with the idea of wanting to discover what was fun for me, because I got no fucking clue. I don't know. I know how to work. I'm really, really good at, do you need any work done? Because I'm really good at it. Like that was my whole identity, was I'm a hard worker. Fun What is it? I don't know. I have no idea. And now I'm frustrated, and this is the opposite of that. So it was quite a journey of discovering what was fun for me. And that was like my way into my desires of like figuring out like, yeah, what does light me up? And so focus wheels is a fun tool to employ in this kind of situation if that's where you find yourself, as far as like, I do need a little bit of momentum to get going here on me even knowing kind of what are my desires, what lights me. I don't really know yet. Focus wheels are a way where like you're tagging the pieces, like kind of like a detective. Like you're on the scent of your fun, you're on the scent of your desires, and you're like, I have no idea like what's up ahead, no idea what that is. But I do know that I get to have really interesting conversations when I get there, because interesting conversations are my favorite thing. So on the focus wheel of like my deepest desires, or like my dream career, that was one that I made over and over and over again in the 5 months between leaving my software job and then opening my own business. My dream career, and I had no idea what kind of business I was going to open, but like I knew interesting conversations. I knew that I'm going to get to learn a lot. I knew that like I'm going to get to serve people in a really meaningful way where like I impact the quality of life that they're living on a daily basis. Like that feels really important to me, that I do something that matters to them on a daily basis. And I opened a grocery store. Like we have daily customers. We had, especially when we were doing hot food, but even now that we have the cold grab and go, like people that come and like they're getting a sandwich, or they're back and they're getting like a fried chicken dinner, or like whatever it is. And it's so sweet that like we are literally grandma's kitchen, and that was my vision at the beginning, as when we did start opening the grocery store. Again, same kind of thing. I'm on the scent. I have no fucking clue how to do this. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm on the scent. And it's fun. It's fun to learn. And right now it's fun to do this. And right now it's fun to do this. And right now it's fun to do this. And 10 months later, we had our grand opening, and I made some mistakes and I wasted time, if you can call it that, but I learned a lot. I learned so much. And the other piece that was on the focus wheel was like, I want to do this in a way where I'm able to like be the owner through building it. Like I don't want to have to bring any money to the table, basically. Like I have enough to give without also needing to spend a lot of money to get this thing off the ground. So basically I want other people to bring the money that we're going to need. So like that was on the focus wheel. And is that not exactly what happened? Like exactly. So warning, God's will is that you have whatever you want. And if it's hard to know what you want, this is a beautiful chapter. This Aries North Node chapter is like being on the scent of your identity. Like it's like a mystery novel. It's like you're just turning pages, like just what's happening, like what is this? And like these little rushes of like, it's not just watching TV, burst into crying and like, what does this mean? It means that no, I have a deep and profound relationship with watching media, and it's powerful. It's like one of my superpowers is that I can like have a spiritual experience watching Mother Undercover or whatever it is. And so it's like owning that and like literally feeling yourself shed. Like I can just see my dad like kind of like sneering about how lazy TV is, like just TV and lazy, like it's just the same and just like so gross and such a waste. And here I am, like in the closet, like getting so much nutrition, like so much nutrients. Like I'm hungry. I'm hungry for TV, for documentaries, for, podcasts, I watch hours of content a day, hours. And I talk about almost none of it. And I'm realizing now, like, why am I doing that? Because it's so fun. It's so fun to get to share like the cool little pieces like out of what I'm seeing. So yeah, I give you all of this as kind of the general introduction of where we are here, like 10 days into 10, 11 days into the Aries North Node chapter. And it is my pleasure to kind of sprinkle these seeds throughout. And it's interesting because it goes back to that Aries North Node concept of trusting your instincts and trusting that what you want is actually in the highest good of the all, you know? And that is something that I have really had to wrap my mind around and lean into. And if anything, it's literally the medicine for anxiety. Is like, we spend so much time in that Libra South Node place of trying to define universal right and universal wrong, collective right and wrong. And that illusion that even exists keeps us so stuck from experiencing the authenticity that we were meant to have. And that authenticity, it's our creative engine. It's our creative engine. It's our protective force field. Like that was a download that I got as far as like how authenticity works as far as the protective force field. Like if you've seen, I think it's Ocean's 12 with the night fox, and he's like super sexy body. He's got this like yoga tai chi like movement thing going on, and then there's these lasers protecting this egg, and he like goes through the lasers, and he goes like forwards and backwards and sideways and backwards and forwards, and he gets almost all the way there, and then he has to like back all the way back out, and then he like is able to kind of go up, and then he gets the egg. And my spiritual support was showing me all of this like about how authenticity works, and then they drop it in on me. You're the egg. You're the egg. You're the precious treasure that exists, that is worthy of this organic dancing force field of protection that exists around you 24/7. That basically your authenticity in your aura is that protective force field protecting the soft center of the being that lives in the middle of that. And honestly, worst case scenario is that it can be a little lonely. So it's a practice in solitude in those moments of like, do you enjoy your own company? Do you have fun things that you can do completely by yourself where it does not matter at all what anybody else is doing, because I can pick up this toy and play with this toy, or I can sit here with this book, or I can watch this thing, or I can go to this place, or I can take this adventure. Whatever it is, do you have fun that you can have on your own? Because as soon as you can be in solitude, that energetic force field kicks into high gear. And as soon as you're willing to be alone, like you'd rather be alone than in bad company, again, that force field kicks into high gear. And the only key to turning it on is your authenticity. But this Libra South Node is absolutely highlighting for us all just how challenging, like just how much of a Mount Everest owning authenticity really is. Like all the programming, all the fear, all the social rejection through the centuries, like we have like a survival brain, and it learns what is bad for survival rates. And so, for instance, like the last time we heard from the witches, they all got burned alive. And so now it's like a revolutionary freaking act to like come out and like be a witch in public, because the last time that happened, we took them all and burned them. So like civilization is a terrifying fucking place, and being your authentic self in a terrifying place, like I get why that doesn't track. I get why we hide. I get why lying's easier. I mean, I get it. I get why we do that, me included. Like, it makes sense. Civilization, society is a terrifying place. The world is a terrifying place in many ways. And what are you supposed to do with that? And again, these little visualizations, these little like pieces of the puzzle of my identity that let me own the power of who I am, to be even more confident that, you know, even like worst case scenario, civilization, society isn't going to get me. That's worst case scenario, is like I'll be rejected. Like, you know, how willing are we to be rejected? Like, that's why I think Mother Undercover, let me go full circle here. Mother Undercover is such an inspiring story, the different episodes, all of them inspiring stories, because being rejected was like the least of their concerns. And it just like, it felt like it really put things into perspective for me and my fears of like, what am I facing, and like what's worst case scenario if I really play this out. And like, they faced such bigger obstacles and found the fire within themselves, and it inspired me to find the fire for whatever obstacle I feel is holding me back, whatever limitation, whatever fear of rejection, or whatever it is, that I can muster just a little bit more courage to be a little bit more owning my authenticity. Again, just being on the scent of my authenticity piece by piece, tracking it down for myself, for the sanity, the peace, the right that I have to be me, to be my authentic individual self. And again, there's a lot of people who will try to talk you out of being that. And it really comes down to, how important is it to you? And now, because you made it all the way to the end, you get to meet Smoky Bobb. Say hi, Smoky Bobb. Oh, she's had a rough week, if you can relate to that. Give her just one little look up here. Say, look at my face. Oh my goodness, I'm so little and I had such a hard week. She got own her authenticity and say, I had a real hard week. Oh, she's precious. She's like, is that me? I'm beautiful. I'm so pretty. There you go. I found her under the hood of my car. My dogs actually found her. They were like, there's something in there. And then I was out there and like, she's meowing and like, oh my gosh, it's a baby. It's another baby. I say another because now at this point we got 3 cats and 2 dogs here on the Ponderosa. Smoky Bobb is just the latest addition in a long legacy of adopting the ones that show up when they show up. So, oh my gosh, she's so precious. But yeah, I don't know how or when she got under the hood of my car, but she claimed it here. She says, I live here now, and you all are my sisters, and I came here to love you. And oh my gosh, it's been so beautiful getting to be with her these last few days. And she was so like in survival mode, like fighting for her life, like just terrified of everything. And she's still very skittish. But you see, like, I mean, she's very holdable. She's very sweet. She never uses her claws when I'm holding her. But she's very, very skeptical of a lot of things. And you got to give her credit for that. I'm like, dude, trust your instincts. She's like showing me like how fight or flight like works. Like I'm witnessing it for days now. So yeah, beautiful things unfolding here on the Ponderosa. I hope wherever you are as well. It has literally been my pleasure to hang out with you. Here in my morning, like this is just the place that I want to be. Like there's literally nowhere else I want to be. I almost cried happy tears when I was like getting ready to sit down the first time. Like, this is my life and I love it. And I get to share these little pockets with whoever it is that's watching this. And I am so grateful for this outlet and whatever it adds to your life. I hope it's yummy. I hope it's delicious. I hope it feeds one of your appetites, at least partially. If you enjoyed it, I would love it if you could leave a like on the video, comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. Say hi. Where are you from? What's going on? What's your North Node? How's the Aries North Node chapter treating you? Is it a lot like it is for me? That Cardinal Grand Cross that we had, like right off the bat, was no joke. Oh my goodness. I feel like I could make like a whole story time about that 8-day period, like the first 8 days of the Aries North Node chapter, and maybe someday I will. Talk about being activated into knowing your own truth more deeply, trusting yourself more deeply, trusting that your personal desires are actually in the highest good of the all. I mentioned in the last update that, like, I think when we really lean into our courage of like what Aries North Node is asking for from us is to like lean into our courage and be ourselves, like, which, as we've talked about, is no small feat. But when we do, I think many of us will be blessed, like pleasantly surprised by the high quality, loving, supportive reactions that we receive, the affirmative reactions that we receive for revealing our authentic self, like facing that fear, going for it. We end up with someone who completely resonates with us, or, oh my God, I was thinking the same thing, or I'm right there with you. Like, I can't believe this is what you're saying. I've been thinking the same thing. Like, it all is woven together, and our desires, our unique fire energy is our code. It's our turn-by-turn navigational directions of like the impulses that flow through us. They're not just for us, but we will be served in the following of them. So it's a beautiful mixture of receiving on behalf of ourselves, but also the all at the same time. Like, if you receive truly, if you receive love into your heart on behalf of yourself, the natural, logical next step in the order of things is for that love to then spill onto someone else. So you can't help but pay it forward when you allow yourself to receive. And so I feel like this Aries North Node is bringing us so beautifully in touch with the truth of our hearts, whatever that may be. And I totally get if that's having you face some really hard things, some really deep fears that, you know, other people just are not gonna like what you have to say. And if that's anything close to where you are, just know that I am right there with you. I'm right there with you, untangling and unraveling and rethinking and deconstructing and doing all the things. So, you know, again, I would love to hear from you down below. Subscribe if you're interested in more Aries North Node updates. There's more coming soon. I actually thought this was going to be the intro of the last section of the individual Aries North Node videos. I need to talk to Cancer, Leo, and Virgo. We need to open those conversations, and then we're going to take another lap around and talk to everybody else again. And I have a little preview for you. Actually, this is fun. Okay, so like the last time when I talked to Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius North Nodes, I shared that because I'm less familiar with these, I'm having to reach more intuitively. I don't have the knowledge side, like where I'm consciously understanding like I do on the other 6, or at least I think I do. And if anything, I think it's one of those things where knowledge can actually hold you back, because I don't have the knowledge, I have to use my intuition. I have to follow my instincts and my impulses. And so on that Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius video, I pulled cards, I used the archetype cards, I used the Curious Creatures Tarot, and used that to bring through some additional messages and to kind of like help me clarify too. And as I was going for the Cancer, Leo, and Virgo North Nodes and like kind of getting myself together for those, tuning into those, I was like, ooh, this is such a fun place to like, I'm actually personally obsessed, low-key obsessed with a Virgo North Node. The nodes actually happen to be almost exactly opposite mine. Mine are at 17, his are at 15. I'm a Pisces North Node, he's a Pisces South Node, so like almost exactly on top of each other, opposite nodes. And I have circled back many times because I am obsessed with this person, and like the choices, the tools that they had access to, and the choices of what they did with them. And I am just like low-key obsessed. And so I was like, wow, like what a way to communicate and to deepen our contemplation around each of the individual North nodes, but to find an example person of like, who is somebody that we can look at. And like, for example, I'm going to put on the screen here, I did a very quick Google search and came up with, I just Googled like famous Aries North Node people. And it is so interesting because like that means they all have that Libra South Node, right? And it's interesting because on this list, most of them are actors. And so I think that's really interesting, something that's pretty common around the air South nodes, so the Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius South nodes, all of them. It's very common for actors to have a placement like that because it literally means that air South node means that you have a fluid sense of identity. Like there's not a whole lot of ego attachment to any one way of being. Like there's Aquarius maybe more than the others, but even then, like it's not organic to inside of you as far as like the fire South nodes, like you just are. Like this is my identity, and like it is what it is. But those air South nodes, they can be different people. They've spent a lot of lifetimes observing. And so they know how to like be lots of different ways. And I find it fascinating when you look at this list and like think about the actors on the list and like how you've seen them play different roles and things. And then in the middle of all of it is Caitlyn Jenner. And I'm like, wow, like that really strikes me as far as a person who, I mean, like went so far as to permanently, physically, surgically alter the physical body to match the inner identity of who they knew themselves to be, regardless of the backlash, regardless of, oh no, you're an athlete, you're like a man's man, like you can't do this. And he's like, watch me, I'm Caitlyn. Like, oh my God, like I don't care what you think of like the choice of like what she actually chose, but I do admire the commitment and the dedication to being in alignment with their own truth and allowing that to be their guide, and to in that way somewhat kind of break the mold of like what civilization will allow you to be. Aries North Node is a place where we kind of set ourselves free. We break the shackles, we break the box, we break the bonds of how society and civilization and conditioning and programming can keep us small to keep other people comfortable. We break free of that and we become who we really are, no matter what. So I'm super excited. This is part of why I'm so excited to get that last chunk out, just so we can like kind of start going back around with these like kind of case study examples, where we look at, what does an Aries North Node look like out in the world? What does a Taurus North Node look like out in the world? I'm so excited for that. So watch the channel for that coming soon. Again, it's been my pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed it. Until next time, I hope you take such good care of yourselves. I hope the background noise wasn't too distracting. That was Smoky Bobb really finding her groove, finding her rhythm, finding her authenticity, finding her play. Oh, she's really, really loosening up and expressing herself, and it's a joy to see. I hope you've enjoyed being here. I'll see you next time. Take good care.